So he says Kamala Harris doesn't have the mental capacity to do a real debate against me. I agree. Scheduled for September 4th in Pennsylvania. She's afraid to do it because there's no way she could justify her corrupt and open borders, right? The environmental destruction of our country, true. The Afghanistan embarrassment, absolutely true. Runaway inflation, true. Terrible economy, true. High interest rates and taxes, true. And her years-long fight to stop the words Merry Christmas. I'll see her on September 4th, or I won't see her at all. And he goes on and on and on. Now, he does say this, that the combination of these two low IQ'd individuals have destroyed our country, but we will make America great again. Now, obviously, they make a good point because what they have behind them is this propaganda machine like MSNBC or like CNN or like ABC. All they do is sing high praises to Kamala Harris and hating on President Trump. But the good thing about some of the news channels out there is they're a little bit more honest, which brings me to what Fox News had to say about Kamala Harris when it comes to debating. Let's take a look at that.
Kamala Harris, she doesn't have a whole lot of experience facing Republicans in elections, right? This is essentially a one-party state here in California. Democrats have had a supermajority here for God knows how long at this point. Every time she's run, whether it's San Francisco DA, California AG, California Senator, it's always been about Democrats, against Democrats. How's it going to be different for her this time, running against an actual Republican, the biggest Republican right now, in Donald Trump?
Well, we're going to see that she has a glass jaw. Look, she's been promoted just by Peter Principle every step of the way. She hasn't faced any real opposition from Democrats either, by the way. And so when she has to actually answer questions from people who have real concerns, I don't think her vibes are going to play that well.
Yeah, Roxanne, as Alex just mentioned, she hasn't really done any media interviews yet. We don't know exactly where she stands now. A lot of her positions seem to be changing from what they were back in 2020, whether it's fracking or decriminalizing illegal immigration. She even compared ICE to the KKK. She's tossed around the idea of abolishing ICE, giving health care to illegal aliens. Take a listen.
I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role.
I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health.
Now she's doing a little bit of a 180 on some of these prior policies. Still hasn't talked to the media yet, hasn't taken a question. Where do you see this going for her?
It's not going to end well. Look, I'm from Jamaica, so I can say this. She is not the best person. I will, the people are coming. None of what she says really makes sense. And that's because no one's ever had to pin her down. She's willing to take both sides of an issue because she's never actually, as you said, had to run anything or do anything. And I think people looking at her to be the chief executive of the country are going to think again before they put her in that position. She always talks like someone who got assigned a book for a book report and they didn't read it.
Okay, so you guys saw that, and they make a phenomenal point, right? She's yet to even sit down with even the propaganda news channels and answer simple questions. I mean, it's fascinating that the only time we're able to even hear a response is either she's at a rally, but it's part of her speech, or secondly, they're catching her midway to Air Force One right before she's going to get on the plane, and they're able to squeak in a question or two, right? Like, that's the only time we're able to get anything out of her mouth. Every other announcement has been released by her campaign staffers. And I really believe this is disrespectful to Americans. I really do believe it is. I think it's a form of gaslighting, or it's the sister of gaslighting, where it's an intentional silence to manipulate people into voting for you. Right? Because they're letting the propaganda machine trigger people and get them to become scared of President Trump. And at the same time, they're not saying anything that can call people to question Kamala Harris. But I really don't think that's going to work. I think it's actually going to backfire, because if you can't tell people, hey, here's where we are, which is point A, and here's point B, and here's my plan to get us from point A to point B. If she's not going out there and saying anything like that, I think it will backfire when it's all said and done. And like I've been saying, I don't believe it's in her best interest to do a debate. There are a couple of reasons why they are not going to agree to the debate with President Trump on September 4th. Reason number one is it's before people can cast their vote. These are people who are allowed to do early voting. There's quite a few states out there that allow early voting in the month of September. Yes. And so if you go back to 2020, when Trump and Biden did their debates, it was after early voting has taken place. So there was already people who casted their vote before hearing both of them on stage. And so Trump wants to get ahead of that, of course. Now, reason number 2 is that she can't actually debate people. And you know what? That isn't my opinion. This is a fact. Unless she's had some transformation over the last few years, which I believe she has not, we can always go to the receipts to see that she cannot handle a debate because we saw what happened to her in 2020. Let's take a look at that.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you were in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so.